There are truths that do not fit in the world. They are too large, too heavy. When you find one of them in the depths of a godforsaken canyon, you have two choices: forget what you saw or be crushed by the weight of your knowledge. I chose a third option. I recorded every impossible detail, and I pray that one day the world will be ready to read it. Tower of Re, Temple of Isis, Cheops Pyramid, Temple of Zoroaster, Brahma Temple, Shiva Temple, names of Egyptian gods and pharaohs, of Hindu deities scattered across the heart of North America. Why did the first American explorers, men of the 19th century, christen the most iconic geography of their country with the names of pantheons from an ancient world on the other side of the ocean? The official history tells us it was fantasy, a poetic eccentricity of educated men impressed by the grandeur of the landscape. The truth is far more dangerous. They were not being poetic. They were leaving a map that leads to a discovery so impossible, so cataclysmic to our timeline, that the American government and its archaeological arm, the Smithsonian Institution, were forced to seal it off and erase its existence from history. My name is G.E. Kinkaid. For over 30 years, I prospected for minerals for the Smithsonian. But what I found that day, nearly 40 miles up from the El Tovar Canyon, was not of this world. About 2,000 feet up the sheer canyon wall, I saw steps, perfectly hewn into the rock, leading to a cave entrance that was almost impossible to reach. It was no natural formation. The main passage was long, almost a corridor. The walls were smooth, the work of human hands. Several side passages opened up like the spokes of a wheel. In each, rooms filled with artifacts, an arsenal of copper. The metallurgy showed a greenish patina of millennia, but the blade's edge seemed dangerously new. I tested it against the rock. The metal did not yield. It was an unknown alloy, hard as the steel of our day. There were ceramic vessels and copper urns with strange designs and preserved seeds inside. And the most shocking? Stone tablets covered in hieroglyphs, symbols I had only ever seen in books about Egypt. At the end of the main corridor, I found a circular chamber, a crypt. The air was thin, dry, with the sweet, unmistakable smell of millennia-old dust and linen. In the center, a stone idol sitting cross-legged, holding a lotus flower in each hand, an image more Eastern than Egyptian. And there they were, dozens of mummies, each perfectly preserved, seated in niches carved from the rock, over 9 feet tall even while sitting. All were wrapped in dark cloth, all facing the idol, like a silent congregation waiting for a sermon that never came. Let's analyze what Kinkaid found. These aren't just artifacts, they are timeline-breaking anomalies. Egyptian hieroglyphs thousands of miles from the Nile. Eastern iconography suggesting a culture that had contact with both Egypt and Tibet. Advanced metallurgy centuries before the age of steel. And preserved seeds, the mark of survivors of a cataclysm. Kinkaid's collection was not an Egyptian outpost. It was something much bigger. And the anomaly is not alone. On the other side of the world, in a national park near Gosford, Australia, we find the so-called Gosford glyphs, hundreds of Egyptian-style symbols carved into 2 sandstone walls. Official archaeology dismisses them as a modern hoax. But just like in the Grand Canyon, the symbols are there in a place they shouldn't be, telling a story that shouldn't exist. The pattern is global. But the question remains, who were these people? Kinkaid gives us the final clue. The mummies were taller than the tallest men of today, and the architecture was carved for giants. What if the underground city in the Grand Canyon was not an outpost, but a refuge, one of the last strongholds of the same lineage of giants and gods we've discussed before, the survivors of a war or cataclysm that forced them to hide in the bowels of the planet? The architectural signature matches the impossible biology. This was not a human city, it was a tomb of titans. A collection that would change the world. Mummies, gold, hieroglyphs, lost technology. The question is obvious. Where is the museum that displays all this? Where are the Smithsonian's reports? The answer? Nowhere, because everything was confiscated and locked away in the world's most secure vault, the Vault of Official Oblivion. If you want to know who shut the door and swallowed the key, subscribe to the Codex now. The conspiracy has a name. The official answer is a dead end, a bureaucratic shrug. End of story. Or is it? To understand the Smithsonian's denial, you have to understand the ideological war the institution was fighting in the early 20th century under the leadership of men like John Wesley Powell. The official doctrine was isolationism, the belief that Native American civilizations developed in isolation and were primitive. Any evidence of transoceanic contact, of advanced technology, or of a sophisticated civilization predating the natives, like the one Kinkaid described, was a direct threat to this doctrine, which conveniently supported the narrative of manifest destiny. The city in the Grand Canyon wasn't just an archaeological anomaly, it was a political heresy. It had to be erased. This is the proof of the cover-up, not in the past but in the present. What happened to this site? Was it turned into a park, a monument to the greatest discovery in American history? No, it was erased. The exact area described by Kinkaid is today a restricted zone, forbidden to you, forbidden to me. The airspace above it is restricted. Why? The official excuse is preservation. But preserving what exactly? Of the thousands of caves in the Grand Canyon, why did this one deserve the silence of the state? The answer is obvious. They're not protecting the rock, they're protecting the secret it guards. What is louder than a lost city filled with gold and mummies? The absolute silence that followed its discovery. The Smithsonian didn't need to prove Kinkaid was lying. They just needed to ensure no one could ever prove he was telling the truth by sealing the crime scene. And as for G.E. Kinkaid, the man who stumbled upon the greatest discovery in American history, he vanishes from the records. His name becomes a joke, a synonym for a frontier newspaper hoax. The Smithsonian didn't just bury the artifacts, they buried the man who found them. The sealed cave doesn't just hide artifacts, it hides a gaping wound in our history, the proof that our past is far more complex, globalized, and mysterious than we are allowed to believe. The Grand Canyon is not just a geological scar on the face of the earth. It is the scar of a memory that was stolen from us. The government can control physical access to the canyon, but they cannot control access to information and our collective curiosity. Together, our swarm of digital eyes can see what a government tries to hide. Subscribe to become a guardian of this map. The truth is out there, waiting for a new expedition.